Thanks for joining us for another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum where all voices matter. Well, the results are in, and Pierre Poilievre has been elected as leader of the Conservatives by a smashing margin. Here to discuss the details and implications is Stephen Taylor. He's a former senior political advisor to the leader of the opposition and a seasoned analyst. Good to have you back, Stephen.
Thanks, Tony.
First, I'd love to get just your initial reactions to Pierre Poilievre's victory.
Yeah, well, it was kind of blowout, 68%. When you want to win on the first ballot in a field, in a large field of candidates, it's a hard thing to do. Sometimes you want to eke out with 50% plus one votes to win on the first ballot, but I had estimated 58% Pierre on the first ballot, but he smashed through that at 68%, which I think only Stephen Harper in 2004 was able to pull off in the history of his party.
Yeah, Stephen was actually, I ran against Stephen Harper in that election, and Stephen was around 57%. So it even.
Okay, fair enough. I'll amend that. So Pierre smashed right through that.
Right through that. So and of course, in British politics, Liz Truss won her leadership election by 57% as well. So yes, Pierre Poilievre is in a class by himself. You probably know it riding by riding too. He won 330 out of 338 total ridings. Maybe just your sense of that too.
Yeah, well, I mean, Pierre's message resonated across the country with no matter where you lived. I think most Canadians and most Conservatives are particularly concerned about affordability as an issue. And a campaign through Pierre's political videos and through his social media, he just kept repeating that point. It's about inflation, just inflation, as he calls it, about the affordability, about young people being able to afford homes to start families. It's a real concern for Canadians, and really his chief rival, Jean Charest, really just made this race about Pierre's tone rather than any substantial issue. And when you start to cut things down by process rather than by substance, you're going to be outmatched.
Interesting. You talked about the economic issues. We're going to return to those for sure. But any regional variations? This country is a combination of regions. Were there any areas of the country where Pierre was stronger or weaker, that kind of thing?
Well, look, I know that Pierre, for example, I mean, Conservatives have always been very strong in Saskatchewan and Alberta. I know that Pierre raised over $1 million just in Alberta. It's kind of hard to parse where he was strong, where he was weak when he wins 300 out of 338 ridings. So, I mean, there's going to be the typical places where you'd expect Jean Charest to have done well. I mean, especially compared to the race with Erin O'Toole, where Leslie Lewis was actually quite a factor, pulling in the social conservative vote. That was not a factor. This leadership, those votes pooled behind Pierre Poilievre, despite sort of the best wishes of some of the activists who were trying to rally the socially conservative vote behind Leslie Lewis.
So let's talk a little bit about the messages again. You started to talk about that. Which do you think were the most impactful for Pierre Poilievre?
Oh, affordability, the cost of home ownership, inflation. I mean, in a race in politics, whether it's for leadership or in a general election, you want to hit upon, 2 or 3, up to 5, as we saw, Stephen Harper, his first election that he won. But you want to really narrow it down to a few key themes. And for Pierre, it was affordability. It was inflation. It was the home ownership that really, I think, resonated with most Canadians. The Bitcoin element was a little interesting wrinkle, but as we saw that Bitcoin sort of crash this year, or at least halved its value, we moved away from that issue pretty quick. But I think that it sort of went into the more broader frame that Pierre is starting to think about these issues a little bit more closely. He sold 312,000 memberships out of a total of 675,000. We saw that Patrick Brown's number of 150,000 might have been, not quite accurate because we certainly didn't see those people show up or either cast a ballot. They might have been all in for Patrick Brown, or the number might have been inflated itself. So, and as for Jean Charest and Leslyn Lewis, they almost matched each other in strength, with Jean Charest just coming up ahead. So it really was Pierre's race, and he won it quite decisively.